What's up, everyone? Welcome to the video. We are here talking prize picks for week 13 of the NFL season. And all I'm doing here is trying to find the best value on prize picks compared to a sports book like DraftKings, which I find to offer much sharper lines, or just finding players that are in great spots, have good matchups and good opportunity this weekend, with their props being a little bit lower than what I expect they should be. But anyway, if this is your first time here, what's up? My name is Chris Pinelli. I break down NASCAR and NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel. But I do like to dabble into the prize pick streets because I live in Florida. I can't legally bet, but this is my work a way around it, and I highly enjoy playing on this website. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return, if you can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and hit that bell so you notify whenever I post new content. And feel free to leave a comment down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. You want to make fun of me, say something nice, or just tell me your favorite props, you're more than welcome to do just that. All right, so getting into the first pick here, it's a prop that I think everyone's taken the over on, which does give me some slight concerns because I think everyone took the over on the Stevenson prop on Thursday Night Football. And yeah, we saw how that worked out. We got close at the end, but couldn't quite get there. But anyway, we were talking about Nicholas Jamal Chubb. He's currently sitting at 94.5 yards on PrizePicks, similar on DK, and at minus 125 for the over on there. So we got a little bit of juice in our favor. And it's just a dream matchup versus Houston. Just everything would suggest that Nick Chubb is going to have a big game. I personally think he gets you over 100 rushing yards in this one, which would clear the prop. Not really using the passing game, but obviously that's not what we want. We want rushing yards. And no better spot, really, than the Houston Texans defense. And he checks almost all the boxes besides being a pass-catching back, but that's more so for DFS purposes. I don't really like him in DFS that much just because of that fact, but you can kind of hedge yourself if you think he's going to have a good day, but you want to play him in DFS, take his over on PrizePicks so you can win both ways. But anyway, Chubb for the Browns offense, they're getting Deshaun Watson back, which some people might think they pass more. I don't think they're going to go too crazy with Watson. It's his first game back in a couple of seasons. Probably going to be a bit rusty. Yes, they're going to give him some big plays, I'm sure, but still a 27-point implied team total for the Browns offense. They're on the road in Houston, 7-point favorite. Should be able to run the ball quite a bit. And on the season, Chubb's actually sitting at 94.5 yards per game on his average. So it's exactly what the prop is. Given the plus matchup here, I think we should be able to get an easy over. I really am expecting 100 plus yards on the ground for Chubb, and the matchup doesn't get much better than this. His own defense, the Browns, is pretty bad versus the run, but the Texans are as well. They're 30th DVA versus the run, allowing the second most points per game to fantasy running backs, 150 yards per game on the ground, and over a rushing touchdown as well. So while he's not a favorite of mine in DFS just because he doesn't catch many passes, I really like the over here because at 94.5 yards, while it is trendy, it makes a lot of sense looking at the numbers in the matchup, and Kareem Hunt hasn't really been as much of a factor as we've seen in the past. It's really just been the Chubb show, and I don't really see why it's going to stop here. And moving on to our second prop here, we're talking about one of the highest owned players in DFS this week, and if you are playing DFS, I do have ownership projections down below in the comment section if you want to check those out, including an optimizer, cheat sheets, projections, and things like that, which you can use to compare on the PrizePicks portion of their fantasy scores. But speaking of fantasy scores and speaking of high-owned wide receivers in DFS, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown's over 16.5 fantasy score. Now, we got a freebie last week with him at only 15 versus the Bills, just about doubled that. The number went up a little bit here, but I love this game environment. I'm fully expecting it to be back and forth, and I like a lot of overs in this game, and Amon-Ra St. Brown might be my favorite. Now, if you want to take us over in the receiving yards department, I am fine with that as well. I believe it's currently sitting at 74.5 or 75.5, but I'm opting to go with the fantasy score here. Vegas-wise, they have been around 75 yards and 7 catches. That puts him, right around 14, 15 points. There's obviously, I think, a decent chance he can get into the end zone as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets you over 7 catches or 80 yards. So I'm like taking the over here. We have a 51.5 point over under, 26.25 implied team total for the Detroit Lions. Two bad defenses facing off. Looking at how Jacksonville's fared versus the wide receiver position this season, hasn't exactly been great. Now they're kind of mid-pack versus wide receivers, but overall versus the pass, they're 30th DVA, which is third worst. And with this being a pretty fast-paced back and forth game, and Jared Goff historically playing better at home so far this season with the Detroit Lions, I like taking the over here. I think Goff, his over is currently sitting at 240 for his passing yards. I think that's another good over as well. I could easily see him getting 250 plus here, which should coincide with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's been very good so far this season, averaging 0.32 targets per route ran, which is right on par with Tyreek Hill, 0.59 fantasy points per route ran, which is only behind Tyreek Hill and Christian Watson this year, which he has a pretty small sample size. So yeah, he's been a beast. He's on an offense that will throw the ball quite a bit. Should be a back and forth game and a very beatable Jaguars defense. Loving Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like all of his overs, but I am sticking with the fantasy score at 16.5. And I should mention that Jameson Williams did get activated for this game, but to think he's going to make a huge impact in his first game after being injured for quite some time, I highly doubt that. I guess really the only thing it would help would be Jared Goff in the yards department if you do take that prop. But as far as Amon-Ra St. Brown is concerned, don't really have any, to be honest. And before we get into our next prop, I do need to mention the sponsor of the show, PrizePicks, because they do make these videos possible. And if you are a new user on the website, promo code CPEN can get you an instant deposit match bonus up to $100. And they now offer, it used to be 10x on 5-pick parlays. Now you can go up to 25x on 6-pick prop bets. So check it out if you want. Link is down below in the description for that if you are a new user. Take advantage of it. I know it sounds like free money. It usually isn't, but it really is if you are a first-time depositor. Use that to your advantage, and they usually offer a bunch of promos to take advantage of. Just on Thanksgiving, we had Justin Jefferson over 0.5 receiving yards. Obviously, that hit, and they do a lot of those. And they do things on Tuesday like Taco Tuesday where there's discount on props and many, many more. So check it out if you want. Links down below in the description or in the pinned comment. And finishing us off with our third and final prop. This is another player that's going to have some pretty decent ownership for DFS purposes this weekend. But for a good reason. Had a great game last week. 2 touchdowns. Had a longer one. And Mike White seems to be the savior for the New York Jets wide receivers. But he had a great game last weekend. And while I'm not expecting as many fireworks as last time out, it's still a pretty good spot versus Minnesota. And Garrett Wilson, his prop's only at 58.5 yards, which it was on DK. I think it's bumped up now to 60.5 on PrizePicks by the time I am recording this. I still like the over on that. He's at minus 125 for the over on 58.5 on the DK Sportsbook. But I can easily see him getting 60 plus yards here. He's currently at minus 140 for over 4.5 catches. Got 8 targets last week with Mike White. It's another very beatable matchup here versus the Minnesota Vikings defense, which so far this season, specifically versus wide receivers, they have not been all that great. 27th versus the position and allowing nearly 200 yards per game specifically to the wide receiver position, which I believe is most of all teams. And they're also 27th DVA versus the pass as well. I'm not sure Mike White's going to play as good as he did last week or as good as he was versus the Bengals in his first game last year in prime time. But I would say he's definitely an upgrade over Zach Wilson. And Garrett Wilson has gone over this prop number 3 out of the past 4 weeks, even without Mike White. So I'm expecting probably 70 plus yards here. I'd say there's a decent shot he gets into the end zone. I was very tempted to talk about his fantasy score that's currently sitting at 13, but I opted to go with the receiving yards prop at 60.5 because it felt just a little bit safer. So just to recap, the first one we talked about was Nick Chubb over 94.5 yards, Amon-Ra St. Brown over 16.5 fantasy points, and what we just talked about, Garrett Wilson over 60.5 yards. Now, I always recommend doing a flex play because I'm the king of 2 out of 3s, but if you want to go with a power play, I totally understand because there's a lot more upside. But with that being said, guys, that's all I got for you this week. I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. If you want to check out the extra content, link is down below in the description and the pinned comment for that. But with that being said, I'll get out of here. I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.